Seventh grade. We're going to keep it simple this week. We have a op art picture that we are going to work with a little bit of shading. And I know the last one had quite a bit of detail to it, so this one shouldn't be too bad. You will need to make sure you got a ruler, make sure you got a pencil. Those things definitely. I could also, when we get a little further along, explain how you could add some color to it. But really, these two things will get you started, and then we'll go from there. All right? Okay, let's get started here. We're going to turn to the next page in our sketchbook. Fold that back over. All right. So, pretty simple. You're going to trace your hand. We want it to come out of the bottom of the page here. So, I've got my sketchbook, portrait style with the binding on the left. And we want to get the whole hand, including the arm. So, we're just going to come from the bottom of the page. I'm keeping it pretty tight because I don't have that much room. So my pencil's at a little bit of an angle when it's going in among the fingers. All right, so it's getting right up near the edges. Something simple as that, okay? Then we're going to do some straight lines that are going to go across the page. We don't have a set measurement on these, but we do want to keep them not super thin, because that will give us a lot of work, but we want to be a little less than the thickness of our ruler. So maybe half an inch, if this is an inch, half an inch around that area. You could do some measurements if you want on the side. I'm just going to eyeball it, and as we start to make those lines, then when we get to the hand, we want to stop. So I'm just going to start down here, and I'm going from right to left. And I'm just going to try to keep them all about the same thickness as I work my way up, making sure to stop when we get to the hand. And even around the fingers, we want to keep that same mentality of not going through the hand. All right. This one's not too terribly difficult. Gives us some experience with some shading. Definitely get to see how things will be a little bit more three-dimensional the better you shade. And so hopefully that will help us on some upcoming projects that we'll be working with. When you get up to the finger area, there will be some times where you have to skip and go again. So especially during all those fingers, I've only got a couple spots right here, but I do not want to go through the hand. It's basically like it's sitting on some lined paper, regular maybe notebook paper, and just keep that ruler nice and straight, and pretty soon we will be through to the top. My fingers look a little wonky. I think I'm probably going to have to touch those up a little bit, just how I trace them. Last one. So I'm keeping all those about the same. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to work on the hand parts. So I just want to make sure that when I draw my next line that I'm connecting two lines. I don't want to go to nowhere. So this first one is disconnected from the hand, and I want to give it a little bit of a connection. And so sometimes I keep my ruler nearby just so that I know which lines I'm on, just so I don't get confused. But I'm going to be freehanding these lines, and we want to give them just a little bit of a bend. All right, so they shouldn't be perfectly straight. And we're going to work our way up the wrist and across the top of the hand. All right. Just a slight bend in them. Make sure you go to the correct line on the other side as well, because if you skip one and go up, then you could have a little bit of a mess on your hands. So got to make sure that we're going to the correct line. Now this is where it's going to get a little tricky. This one's going to end up just slightly cutting off. So now I have some breaks here. These lines are still going to remain flat because they're on the page, but really I'm going to have a little bit of a bend here and here and here, and then I'm going to kind of go back, just give it a slight arc. I got the same problem here. I'm going to connect these two and these two and these two, just enough to give it a little bit of a bend. Now here I've got some things going on. I think there probably is a line in between here, so as it gets up, really right before the fingers is kind of tricky just because there's some different lines going on in there. And like I said, my fingers were a little wonky. This one got really skinny, so I'm just going to make them a little bit thicker, although that one's pretty big right there. I'll probably keep it. So I'm going to go there, and there, and there, and this one's tiny. There. A little bit easier to see which lines you got to connect. And that one's kind of already done for me at the top there. Connect that one. Just make sure they're not straight. This will help when we start to add. So it's already starting to get a little bit of a three-dimensional quality to it, as if it's looking like it's popping up off the page. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to add some shading. And what we want to do is we're going to alternate lines. So this is where we could add some color, or we could go black and white. I'm just going to keep it black and white, and then you'll kind of get the idea of what it would be like for color. So if I left the bottom one white, my next one is going to be black. And so really what I'm doing is I'm looking at trying to shade right up next to the wrist. So where that line met, my hand line and the stripe going across, I'm going to try to get that as dark as I can. And I'm not working on the hand right now, I'm just working on the background part. And so I'm just going to shade. This is where we need to practice a little bit of value. So we want to go from our dark and we want it to shade out, getting lighter and lighter. So it's got a nice tone to it. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side here. So I'm connecting these two. And it should be a nice gradual change. You shouldn't see a whole lot of line of where the dark turns into the medium as it turns into the lighter. Just going to do a little light shading away from it. All right. We also want to do shading on the wrist. And so this one is not going to be as extensive as this. I already kind of have my dark line here because this is where it meets kind of the table. So I'm just going to go with a medium tone, and then I'm just going to kind of lightly fade from there. And then I got a medium tone here. I'm just going to lightly fade from there. Keeping your lines small and going in the same direction will help keep it a little smoother. It will help transition a little bit better. If I start going all over the place, zigzag lines, then I'm not going to get that nice smooth transition from dark to light. All right? So these are going to be my darker stripes, and I'm going to leave the lighter ones alone for right now. So not that they're going to be 100% jet black in here, but I'm going to continue that light tone almost to the end. All right? You'll notice I'm giving it a little bit of a rub with my finger. I got to be careful with that. That's just a habit of me blending, is that sometimes it'll smooth it out a little bit, but I don't want to get anything in those other areas for right now. I'm going to continue this throughout this pattern of dark light, dark light. I just want to make sure that I lightly shade away from those dark areas. Should be a nice transition there, and then get a nice medium tone. And I'm kind of going at a little bit of an angle when I put the medium tone on there, just so that it blends nicely. It goes with the curve, I guess I'm saying. Get that to fade out. I'll go dark again. Keeping those lines short. You know, sometimes I'll hold my pencil a little further away too, because that allows me not to push as hard. You notice I got real close when I did the dark, but then I kind of spread away from the end of the pencil so that I can start to get some light shading in there. And then again, not super dark on the wrist, getting that gray tone. This can meet too if they wanted to. They could go up pretty high into one another. You just want to make sure the center is the lightest area, because when you see dark things, they tend to look like they're going back. And when you see lighter things, they tend to come forward. And so when I shade this way, this is what makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional. All right, guys, I'm going to work on this, and we'll get back to you here in a moment. Okay, so I have gone in and I've done my dark lines where it's darker near the edge and shaded onto the hand. Trying to blend those out the best that I can and taking my time. When it got to the finger part, it gets a little tricky because that lighter area is a little narrower and I have to use really, really small pencil lines. Again, I got to be careful with rubbing and blending it with my finger because that could get out of control real quick. You'll also notice that on my lighter lines, I did not want to have an outline like you see here. You see that first original outline. I wanted that to kind of go away. So really all I did was shade very lightly, no dark like I did in my dark line. So I got a medium tone almost, and then I'm going away from the hand just so slightly. But it's not natural to have that line there. I want it to look a little bit more realistic. I realize some of these are still kind of have some lines going through it, but I'm trying to make it look as 3D as possible. This will help with that effect because there will be a shadow on the white lines even though they are white or lighter. All right, and then I got my last one here to shade. Now, once I have this one done, I am doing pretty good. It'll be done. Probably want to go back in and look. We definitely want more light areas. The wider the hand gets apart, this space will be a little lighter, and then as it gets a little closer together, we'll make it just a narrower white area. Same thing with the fingers. Those are tough to do because that light area is just kind of going right down the center, but that light area is what's going to help make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. All right. Now, if you wanted to, once you've got all your lines in, instead of shading with a pencil, you could shade with a color pencil. It is pretty much the same thing. You're going to go dark. So let's say you chose blue. All right. You would go dark blue, and you would get that to gradually fade out, and then you would get a medium blue and get that to gradually fade out. And you would do everything pretty much the same. It's a little tougher though if you mess up. Not so much erasing can go on. You could erase a little bit depending on how dark you have gone and how easy it will be to erase from there. All right. So once you've got it all shaded in, just be careful when you're rubbing that you don't get it too messy. It's pencil, so it's going to get in a few spots, but we really want this to look as three-dimensional as possible so it looks like your hand is popping up off of that page there. All right. Hey, well done. We're only working this class period on it, so next week we'll have something new to work on, and you'll need your sketchbooks for there. You guys that are at home, keep doing a great job. Send me in your pictures. I've been getting a lot of them lately. I'm trying to put them together in a slideshow, and then enjoy the rest of your week, and thanks for being with me.